This is a car pod. How do you like that start?
Little like. I'm Filippo.
I'm Kenan.
No, this is Nick. Nick's filling in for Kenan. Kenan could not be with us today, which is very sad. But we have Nick instead, and Nick is insane, and so that's great.
And I'm from Ohio, so practically speaking, Kenan and I are the same.
Is that true?
Yeah,
Yes.
they're both from Ohio.
Can we transition that? Speaking of Ohio.
Oh, yeah, that's so good. Nice job. Our first news story of the day, Mike Valentine has passed away. Mike Valentine created the Valentine 1 radar detector. Very famous person.
The most famous radar detector.
You got one, right?
I don't.
How many times have you tried to buy one off of Facebook Marketplace and it didn't work? I assume a lot.
I have escort passports, but only because they are cheaper.
And worse. And you bought them on, I assume, used off people in the Audi community in Phoenix.
Or did you buy it off the back of a Motor Trend magazine from 1997?
Yeah.
You guys are on brand, however, I can beat you. I got them for free
Of course you did.
in exchange for a blog review.
Blog post. Yep.
Yep.
Nick makes a car blog. You know, we should shout out Nick's
No,
blog.
it hasn't been updated in years.
No, except when people want you to don't you
Except
update
for
it?
when they give me a free radar detector, then I update my blog.
He's updated it periodically when someone like offers him something. He's like, I'll write a blog post about it. And
Look,
it works.
this is a terrible you googly about Mike Valentine. Let's
Mike
get back to it.
Valentine, obviously very important in the radar detector community and in the if you're speeding and don't want to get caught community.
Right.
Here's another interesting fact about Mike Valentine.
Ooh.
Mike Valentine bought a Carrera GT new.
You're
It is
joking.
the very next VIN after my
You're
car.
joking.
Wow. Now, Mike Valentine's Carrera GT, he got paint to sample signal yellow, the only one, and he specified plaque number 911.
Wow.
Now, my plaque is 543. My car is one of the serial produced ones. You might be thinking to yourself, how is it possible that car 911 came right after 543? Well, Porsche is a company that wants to make money.
So what did they do to car 911?
They just skipped it when they got to that. So Porsche was in the business of selling plaque numbers. This happened, and we did it for 919. They were in the business of selling plaque numbers out of sync. And so the plaque number didn't correspond to the actual production number of the car. So everybody's like, oh, mine was the 911th made, or mine was the first.
Wow.
Nah.
What
not what
plaque
happened.
number would you have ordered?
I don't know. I mean, for resale, you want number 1 or number 1270 probably, or 911. Honestly, would be pretty cool. I bet Valentine had wanted one, and then
Right.
911 is pretty
available.
cool, and so
Yeah.
it was still available, and so they gave it to
I
him.
would have done 914.
Hypothetically, what would that option cost?
Well, free, and they do it if you're a certain statute of person, if you know what I mean. They wouldn't have been offering it to me, I'll tell you that. But like Jerry Seinfeld gets that kind of treatment,
Right.
and there are other people. Now, for 918, you could select for free which plaque you wanted, and so people were just choosing, and it corresponded nothing to the actual production plan of the
Fascinating.
car. And that was mostly true. Most of the Carrera GT plaque numbers are in order, but some weren't. And I've discovered that. I have a VIN list of all the Carrera GTs, and I've discovered going through it that several plaque numbers, many plaque numbers actually, are out of order. But there is a general, the ones that aren't out of order, there is a general, going, the 542 was the one right before it on the other end, et cetera. And then after 911, they went back to 544.
You got any other Carrera GT facts for us?
Oh, well, thank you for asking, Filippo. The Carrera GT Recall has been announced. The
I
Recall
was really
fix.
hoping for a fun fact. Okay, fine. We can
I'll
move
give you a
on.
fun fact. Designed in Southern California. Huntington Beach, in a strip mall.
Is that true?
Yeah. Dead serious.
Sorry, you were saying about the suspension.
The Recall is here. It has not been performed on my car yet, but in the next couple of weeks it will.
Wow.
Here's the thing. I already made a video about this, so I'm going to keep it very short. They're recalling the cars. They're giving us all a free set of tires. I know Nick, when he heard that, he was like, can I have them?
Well, just not any tires too. They're Michelin Sport Cup 2s.
Cup 2s. I looked it up.
tires.
It's like $3,000 in
What
tires.
do you have right now?
I don't know, but I'll tell you.
like,
Michelin
Cup
Pilot
2
Sports. Pilot Super
The
Sports.
unfortunate part for you is that Cup 2s might be less of a good fit for your driving.
I don't know what any of that means. To be honest, I don't think either of them really matter. But it's new tires. Now, unfortunately, I put new tires on the car when I bought it, which was 2 years ago, and only 3,000 miles. But they're going to give me those, so I'll have a set. So you and me can go to a parking when it snows. We'll go to a parking lot late at night and do donuts into the old tires.
In Cup 2s. Yeah. No,
Why does
you
it
must
need
be
to-
relieved as someone who adhered to the stop drive orders.
Yes. Thank you.
Like everyone else that had stop drive orders, you just parked it and let it sit.
I thank you for bringing that up.
sitting behind them.
Another thing they're offering is $3,500 in servicing credit because all of us Carrera GT owners have been subject to the stop drive order. So the cars have been sitting. They're going to need some servicing to bring them back into health. And I'll tell you, it's been hard. Not driving the car's been tough.
Do you think that
for instance,
Honda-
I haven't driven mine since Wednesday.
Do you think that Honda offered the same to all their Accords that are under stop sale, or whatever other cars are?
That's such a great point. Like the Kia Telluride is under stop drive. You think they're going to give them Pilot Sport Cup 2s?
Can you imagine?
I looked this up when the
thought.
stop drive happened, and when what's his
Actually,
name wrote that
0 to
article.
60 time improvement.
I looked this up, and there are like 3.5 million cars on stop drive in the U.S. right now, or some insane number. You know, Kennan's M5 is one of them because of the Takata thing.
Wow.
Yeah. Was it Kennan driving?
Well, it depends on the week.
Yeah, it really
It's in the
does.
shop, does it drive?
Right, that's so true.
knows?
Anyway, there's some Carrera GT information for you at the top of the pod. Mike Valentine.
RIP, Mike Valentine. Important for the car world. Looks like this and drives a signal yellow Carrera GT.
That could have been you, dude.
You could have.
It sells periodically.
You know, and I actually think his biggest innovation was his advertising. The like 1 to 2 page spreads in all the magazines at the time that really gave you the detail. It really made you think like these are better radar detectors and like, oh, it's really important to have the arrows. Like, I think he was a master at direct response advertising.
Yeah,
I'm sure the product was good too, but like
as an
the
ad
ads
guy, he
were
thinks about that. But you're right.
very
I
memorable.
remember him. To this
100%.
day, I mean, that's an enormous part of what I remember from that era.
100%.
Every magazine, every car magazine.
Yep.
I know.
Then you could skip to the back of your DuPont registry and buy a defense dog or mail order partners.
He's right. They also advertised.
100%.
And WeatherTech. WeatherTech is the other one that
WeatherTech
did
is
that.
the other one.
And now they got a 250 GTO.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, next news story, Filippo. Oh,
Passport. You want to make the,
yes.
the joke?
The Honda Passport has dressed up for all. I don't know what this is.
There is Honda has teased a new Passport. So the Passport, of course, is the 2-row version of the Pilot. It's a little bit shorter. The last generation one had no other changes discernible to the human eye.
Right. But they pitched it as being the off-road version.
This one, which the Pilot was redesigned, came out last year. The Passport is coming out later this year.
Yeah.
And they are claiming and trying to make the point that it's more off-road ready.
Yeah, just looking at this picture, I'll tell you that it's not.
There's no
front
articulation.
Yeah, it does look like it has some all-terrains on it, which is fine. But other than that, this looks like a crossover that's wearing some sort of costume.
It does look like it has Honda Prologue headlights.
Will they sell it with this wrap?
I hope so. What a dream.
That would make it pretty cool.
That would make it noticeable.
It's the only thing
It
that's
says
going to
trail.
make the
This is the
Passport.
Trail Sport trim, which is their off-road trim.
But they have a Pilot Trail Sport, and it's a total joke. You know, when I went looking for an off-road vehicle, the family off-road vehicle, which no one wants, but I wanted, people were like, get a Pilot Trail Sport. I'm like, I don't
That's
think
not
you
a
understand what I'm looking for here.
It's not. That's not going to do what you got to do. But the Passport Trail Sport, despite only having 2 rows, might.
No, this will not. It's bad approach angle, as you can see. There's no front hooks. It's going to be a front-wheel drive car. It's going to be. It's not going to be body on frame.
No, of course not. But every manufacturer now is doing this.
Yeah.
Like the Pathfinder off-road version. Remember when the RAV4 had an off-road version?
I will tell you though,
It'll be like every other.
they're all doing it in a cheap, crappy imitation way of Toyota, which did it the right way. You know, the 4Runner and the Grand Cherokee sell enormous amounts to people who don't go off-road but think it's cool. And Honda was like, we want to compete with the Grand Cherokee, and they came out with this trash that isn't, it's just an idea. Like, actually investing in the product is what you need to do in order to succeed. But the Pilot is a great product. The 4Runner's not based on the Highlander for a reason.
Right. Of course, nobody will take their Grand Cherokee off-road because when it breaks down, they'll be too far from the service center.
But if you want to sell it, if you want to sell the car, you got to convince people that it can. And no one's convinced. And that was true with the first-gen Passport. They were all sold to boomers in my neighborhood who were empty nesters who no longer...
They wanted the smaller one.
They wanted the smaller one.
I will give them credit because
it's
at least better than the Mazda CX-70, which is identical to the CX-90.
That's one of the worst.
The CX-90, which is the
I'm glad you're
3-row
explaining
Mazda.
it to me because I was lost 10 minutes
This
ago.
is an all-time classic.
It's the 3-row Mazda large crossover.
Okay.
Replaces the CX-9, although the CX-9 might still be for sale. They now have the CX-70, which is purportedly a smaller version. It is the exact same car, exact same length, just doesn't have a 3rd row.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're selling it as like the lifestyle one. And it's like, well, why don't I just get
car.
the 3rd row one and then fold down
Right.
That's a lifestyle right there.
It makes no sense whatsoever. At least the Passport is like 5 inches shorter or something.
It is shorter. It does purportedly have slightly more off-road shops. In my world, to have off-road capabilities, you got to be body on frame. You got to have recovery hooks. You got to have low range. You got to have all sorts of different. I mean, the Sequoia Terrain Select thing, which is stupid, works really well.
You got to have a light bar. You got to have camo.
I got a light bar and camo.
You got to have camo seats too.
I got camo seats. I got a bee and a goat with the purchase of my car.
No, for $80 extra.
$80 extra after the purchase of my car. Anyway, that's the Passport.
Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered straight to your doorstep. You can skip trips to a grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. I love to cook. But especially on busy days, it's really nice to not have to spend time searching for recipes or buying specific ingredients that might go bad. With HelloFresh, everything you need to make delicious meals comes right to your door, pre-portioned and fresh. Plus, the included step-by-step recipe cards make cooking really simple. You can choose from a variety of menu options to suit all your needs and tastes. There's something for everyone to enjoy, from fit and wholesome to quick and easy, and even vegetarian and family-friendly recipes. We've been using HelloFresh at home and have really enjoyed trying new interesting recipes in a really stress-free way. It allows us to add variety to our meals without any hassle. Plus, the fact that everything is ready to use, pre-portioned, and easy to prepare means that it's perfect for any night of the week, regardless of how busy we are, whether I was at a car event, late at work, at the gym, whatever it may be. For our audience, HelloFresh has created a special deal. For free breakfast for life, go to HelloFresh.com/freecars. That's one free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/freecars.
Okay.
And that is our news for the day.
Next, we move on to our next segment, which is called Talk Cars.
Whoa.
And in this segment, what we do is follow along. We talk about cars. Nick, start us off.
Well, I'm excited about some developments in the aftermarket scene. And neither of these are commercially available, but I have a Murcielago. It's e-gear. And
also, I can see it right now. It's beautiful.
It's a good-looking car. The one flaw of e-gear is that
all of it is a flaw.
People don't like the transmission. I actually think it's not as bad as people hype.
Totally agree.
And that it's gotten a bad rap. However, if you look at what's happened in the Ferrari worlds, companies got really good at swapping them. People said, all right, I will buy the automatic and then I will swap it.
You'll swap to a manual, yeah.
It's like a cottage industry with a lot of weird stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yep.
But
we talked about it when it happened.
It's been very successful, right? So,
yeah.
And everyone's, the price difference between a Murcielago like mine versus a manual is
massive.
Usually 3x.
3x.
Sometimes more. But like generally speaking, people would pay hundreds of thousands of dollars more for the same car where the only difference is that transmission.
Same year Roadster, similar mileage, manual was bid to $500K, 186.
This is a better example.
Right.
It's a 4,500 mile car, $650,000 when your car's a 200 car.
Right. Or like this other one that we sold with more miles, it's still under $200,000 car.
Or Ed's
same color.
blue LP640. The LP640s were especially rare in manual. The 580s, my generation, the first 2 years they were basically manual only. So like it's a little bit more
common.
But basically the manuals are worth a ton. Now, two different companies have been trying to crack the nut. Actually, it's technically the same company. It was EAG, and then when EAG split, it's the investors of EAG of one company.
That it's both. Okay.
Yeah, so they may be like basically working off the same homework, but both are posting on their respective Instagrams. This is after their breakup of their development cars and showing, oh, I can shift. And then the next company will be like, I can shift with no warning lights on the dash. And then they're like, oh, but your odometer's not working and ours is. But they both basically have working prototypes. So if this is true, it could really disrupt the Murcielago market.
Yeah.
Because maybe the price difference doesn't continue to be 3-4x for a manual. If people know they could buy an e-gear and swap it, the swaps will be extensive. It's engine out. The quotes I got initially from EAG before they had finished it was expect 60 to 80 grand.
But still, if it's a $500,000, $400,000 difference.
For a six-figure difference, you make that back and you get to enjoy the car.
You definitely make it back. I got to tell you, I think about this a lot. I'm the type of guy who would buy the OE manual.
Sure.
I wouldn't pay the price difference.
Yeah.
No. It's
and
massive.
so it'll come down.
I think it'll
There are
normalize.
going to be guys like me who are like, it just isn't worth it when you can get.
I think the price for OEM ones will remain incredibly high.
It'll remain high, but I've noticed with Ferraris too, there's a lot of guys like me who are kind of like, really, should I spend all that money for a factory car when
you want
just
a horse on the shifter.
You want a horse on the shifter, but is it worth $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 in some cases? I think this will be a huge deal. You're probably super pumped. You gonna do it?
Yeah, selfishly, even if the 640 the OE manual cars don't come down, I think the e-gear cars will go up.
The converted ones for sure.
They will become more desirable because everyone knows, if I really hate the e-gear, I can just convert it down the road. I'm willing to bid higher.
That's a good point. Your point is, even if it's not a converted car, it'll come up because the possibility is there.
It can now become a donor car to become a converted car.
Stake. So here's the question. EAG has an interesting history. Let's put it that way. Are you serious about that? You're going to send your $200,000 car there? And
what I've told them is, I am happy. I can forgive the history. I need to see complete. I don't want to be the guinea pig. I don't want to be car number 2. I want to see like multiple cars out there and they've worked out all the kinks, because no matter how good you design it, like there will be some revisions over time.
My recollection for what it's worth was not that they had that much problems with craftsmanship, it was just with doing it at all.
There were some issues. There were also some issues with some of the cars. If you go on the Ferrari chat, there's some complaints about this wasn't working right after, that wasn't working right after.
I'd be more worried about the car never being done and never getting the car back. But
that was a problem too. But you're not worried about that?
I mean, I would be worried about it for sure. You would need to plan the car be down for several months. It would be one you'd probably rather buy one already converted than to go through the process yourself.
But that's why your conversion will be worth more. It's that time that you're losing is the value that you're getting.
I imagine you're doubling your investment. 60 to 80 grand, 120, 100. Given that the split is $300,000-$400,000.
I will say that sounds insane, but when you look at Ferraris, they are worth more converted than they would be if not. Than the cost of the conversion. So you look at 599 sticks, you look at 430 sticks, and you look at 575 conversions. They are worth more.
Yeah, and also for the cheaper end, M3 SMG to manual,
M3 E46. E46 conversions are
worth it. Maybe less so now.
Get you the dollar back. Yeah. And sometimes it's just dollar for dollar. And on the Vanquishes, it hasn't even been that.
Well, you have to send it to.
They're not as desirable cars, also. But on this car, I have a suspicion you'll get your money back.
And it's wild that the Mercy is somehow like one of the last SMG/E-Gear/F1 transmissions to be converted. But I guess a lot of it had to do with the computers, that anyone could manufacture the hardware, the parts, but getting all the computers, the TCU and the ECU and all the individual components that talk to each other has been that. So that must be the breakthrough. No one is obviously told the secret sauce to getting it done, and I know of a third company that also is working on it.
And one of the posts that you sent me said that its selling point was still has factory ECU.
Right.
Yes.
Which is a big deal because there's a lot of other stuff that runs off that. And
the 3 or 4 that have been converted in the past use standalone ECUs.
Which is a whole thing. Yeah. No one wants to buy a car with a standalone and go down that road.
Yeah, exactly. You lose the originality. So,
fingers crossed.
I'm excited.
Okay, on our top car segment, I have a little kind of a meta question that I'm curious about for you guys. I got 2 billion views on YouTube. People walk up to me all the time on the street. Have people come up to you guys randomly?
It has happened once to me a few weeks ago. Next to Nick, and somebody came up and said, had both of us and took a picture with us.
Oh, wow.
And it's separately happened to me, but I wasn't there.
Right, someone mistook him for you or something?
Yeah.
Okay, but so this isn't happening. You're walking through airports, people aren't. You're in a lot of our videos now.
I know, and I'm so glad that if somebody wants to say hi, I'm happy to say hi. I'm not doing this for the fame.
Filippo's not the type of guy who chats with people. He keeps his head down.
I don't chat with my friends.
I have this thing about how Filippo refuses to see me on weekends. Do you know about this? One time we convinced him to come to a coffee shop with us on weekend, and he was so miserable that he had to be around me. Weekend is Filippo's personal time. That's where he sleeps.
Right. I go to a coffin and just sleep.
Do people come up to you?
No.
Really?
No, I don't think so.
You did the P38 thing.
I think I got recognized more for being Mr. B7 and the Nick's car blog legacy. I was really big in the Audi scene back in the day, but I have not been recognized for anything cars.
Give us the story. Come on. You were really Mr. B7. Did you know about this?
No. Outside of this moment.
Nick was famous on Audi Zine. Tell us the story. Come on.
I don't know how you missed it. I was the November featured Audi Ziner of 2011. No, for real though. So I've had a B7, which is the 2005.5 to 2008, A4, S4, and RS4. So I've gone the full gamut.
Convertible?
And I have not done the convertible. I've not done the wagon. They've all been sedans. But I've modified all of them as far as you could take it. My S4 had Öhlins, R compounds, big brake kit.
Good mod.
Good mod. Yeah, I tracked it.
Wait, when were you actually the featured? Because I looked up November 2011 and it was these guys.
Maybe it was 2008. It was.
We don't know.
It was in the golden era.
It was a
One
rough
month.
recession year, is all we know.
1 month Audi Zine featured you as the featured
When
guy.
I lived in Arizona at the time. I organized actually the Wednesday night meetups through VW Vortex. So it was just like
Is that how you got your wife? Just like she saw it, it was like,
no,
yes, this man.
she met me pre that.
He was an Audi. It's actually funny. Nick has ridden the Audi train the whole way up to the Murcielago.
Of course, now he owns no.
He had at one point he had an A4 front track, the front wheel drive one with the CVT.
Really?
Yeah,
That was
the first
available
one.
briefly and was a rare model.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he had that, and he had an S4, and he moved
R8.
on.
You got an R8 at some point.
And then the R8 with the RS4.
RS4, R8, Murcielago. He needs a Bugatti Veyron.
He does. That's next. Good point.
The next Audi,
That's the
if
next
he
Audi.
wants to go to the next
Wow.
level.
Yeah, the other.
How did Audi lose you as a customer for like
They
regular
didn't.
cars?
So that's the VAG ways. I went into a Cayenne next. So the theory with the
you're going for
Ascension.
like broad.
Yeah,
broad,
they kept him like.
You start as a young professional, you get your A4, you get your promotion, you get your S4. You get promoted again, you get an RS4, you keep going. And then you hit that middle age thing where you either have to downgrade because you have kids and you're too stretched and you go in the Volkswagen family, or you keep ascending and you go into a Porsche. They've got it.
Right.
And so I kind
Fair.
of, I thankfully made it into a Cayenne, although a used one heavily depreciated. But like when you see people in their mid 30s, they're either going down to a VW or up to
Right.
a Porsche.
That's
they leave the
fascinating.
Audi family.
Nick,
What a shame for Audi, who sells multiple large family SUVs.
yeah, they got him into Cayenne, and unfortunately, that's when he stopped. I don't know that he's ever actually given Volkswagen or Audi any money. In fact, do you know? Here's an amazing Nick fact. He one time took his Cayenne to the dealer for a recall, and they quoted him an oil change, and he thought the quote was so absurd that he used a free AAA tow to tow the car from the dealer to an independent shop where he got the work done.
It's even worse than that. So this was during COVID. They would pick up and deliver your car for free. So it wasn't AAA. It was a Porsche technician drove it from Porsche San Diego to Prologue at the time to do the service, which had to have been the most awkward key exchange ever.
Oh, man.
That's incredible.
But you had him quote an oil change, right? And you were like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah, well, I had a $500 voucher, much like your stop sale money. And so I used the $500 voucher. Then the rest, I was like, no, take it over here, and they'll take care of the rest.
God, that if there was
most
ever any
Nick story
question that Nick
imaginable.
was the cheapest guy in the world, that is one of the all-time classics.
What would it take for you to give Audi money? Or Porsche? Or any
He's
VAG
bought
group?
parts, although used usually.
All of these lease specials, like the
getting
e-tron special, I mean, it's actually pretty appealing.
Oh, he
but
had a TTRS also. He really did
Yeah,
ascend
You really
the...
did all of it. Wow.
Okay,
after I blew the motor on the TTRS, I also took it to Audi San Diego and said, what would it cost to fix this? And they're like, we don't do engine replacements here, but they gave me like a $18,000 repair bill. And they're like, but how about we just upgrade you to a new TTRS? And I was just like, I'm done.
but the answer is you were more famous. People don't come up to you yet. I'll tell you something. As this podcast ascends to the level of the Joe Rogan podcast,
Jerry.
you guys will become,
Who's the host on the Joe Rogan podcast?
not you though, Kenan, unfortunately.
I listen to Call Her Daddy, but I've heard Joe Rogan's good too.
As we ascend to that level, you guys will become. You'll be like Bieber.
I'm
Can't
excited
go
for the
anywhere.
fame. Excited for the fame.
I'm
get a-
finding
when
the
do I get
turtle
the
to you
monkey?
being Vinny Chase here.
Okay, well that's an interesting.
I'm excited for the fame.
Okay, he doesn't know what that means, by the way. He never saw that
that's
show.
Sorry.
They didn't have it in Italy.
Okay,
I wouldn't know. I don't know what you're referencing. But yeah,
in Italy. He's lived in America since 2001. He moved here on 9/11.
For the record, we moved here in 2002. Thank you very much.
9/11 was the catalyst. Okay, I want to talk about. There's two other things that we're going to discuss in this Talk Cars segment. One of them is the Honda Prologue situation.
Yes, please.
Okay, I've said some negative things about the Honda Prologue on this podcast.
Not as negative as the Toyota BZ4X.
Some of those
but
things
close.
have gotten back to Honda,
Oh.
and they weren't happy. So they sent me a Prologue, and then they said, "Hey, here's the Prologue, and by the way, we know it's not the most competitive SUV, but you should try it out. And I thought that was odd. I especially...
Do they have PR people?
I especially thought it was odd because Honda's weird. Like their cars are they have 6 core products, right? And they're the best. In each segment, they're the best. HRV, CRV, Odyssey, Pilot, Accord Civic, right? They're the best. They're the best.
If only they did a Odyssey hybrid. Yes.
Well, nonetheless,
but it doesn't matter.
The Odyssey sells like crazy in that segment, right? Like everybody agrees they're the best.
Yeah.
But then they occasionally come out with cars that are either weird or
Ridgeline.
not the best.
Element.
And the Prologue is that.
CRZ.
I just find it so interesting that here we are in the world of the Prologue where they kind of admit it. I was like, I said to them openly, I was like, Tesla has better range, better acceleration, it costs less. How do you justify that? And they were like, well, it's kind of hard. But they were like, this is it's a prologue to a... And their explanation for it, to answer the questions people might have after seeing me complain about it, their explanation for it was that they kept seeing many buyers go from Honda to other brands because they don't even offer an electric car, and they never really have. Honda's never really had an electric car. And so they've seen all these buyers flow out, and so they want to at least have something. And their point was, it's going to be the Honda of EVs. Like, it's good, it's fine, it's maybe not the very best, but it's a safe choice, and there will be Honda buyers who want a Honda and want to stay in the Honda family. That's reasonable. They also said, although didn't say it, but I'll say it, that Elon Musk is insane, and there are increasingly large numbers of EV buyers.
I see a lot of, I bought this car before I knew Elon Musk was crazy.
Bumper stickers. No, people come up to me all the time and ask car advice. Our neighbor, I can't walk around my dog without my neighbor coming up to me, hey, what do you think I should get? And they increasingly say, I don't want to buy a car from Elon Musk.
Yeah. I want
an electric car.
I will also say two things. First of all, Honda's done this before with the Rodeo, for example, and the Oasis.
And the Acura SLX.
Of course.
The point being, what he's saying is that they had a car that was some other brand's car.
All Isuzus, as it were.
They were Isuzus, and while they were developing their own car. And then when they came out with their own car, guess what?
It was great.
It was actually fantastic.
The Pilot that replaced it, the Passport, was excellent.
Right. The Passport, the original Honda Passport was the Isuzu Rodeo. It was kind of average. They used that time to develop the Pilot. It came out in 2003 and was like the segment killer and has been a huge success.
They basically realized that they were way behind. They needed something, and it did something. Also, I think most consumers don't actually cross shop. They don't go to the Hyundai dealership and the Kia dealership and the Toyota dealership and look at each of their EVs. They go in their CRV and they see it in the showroom and like, oh, cool, Honda does this, I'll buy it.
I think Honda's point was CRV leases come in or people want to trade in their CRV and they're saying, what do you have for me that's electric? I want to get in. And their answer up until this point has been nothing. Now they can at least say we have this.
Right.
If people look at the numbers, the car will not be competitive.
Yeah.
But if people just want a Honda, which a lot of Honda people, let's be honest, like a lot of Honda people do, and you got to figure the only BZ4X sales are to people who want a Toyota that's electric. Because if you looked at any number on that car, the price, the horsepower, the range, any number, you'd be like, this is not a car that I want.
Yep. No, 100%. I'm hopeful that they are, I don't know. I would have concerns about buying, certainly nobody's ever buying a Prologue.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have any concern about leasing them. And it's a good way to tide it over. But I'm shocked that they told you, basically.
I think at some point, and I wish more automakers would do this, because at some point you have to admit the truth.
Right.
And I guarantee you, if I had the GM PR people, they'd be like, the Blazer's best in class, Blazer EV. And it isn't. We all know it isn't. Even the person telling me that. Just like say what's real so that we can establish a good relationship, and then maybe one day you can talk me into saying some nice things about your car. Like that's the theory about a PR person. Yeah. But telling me that the Blazer EV is best in class is just like...
It has the best in class lease deals. Does that count for anything?
So anyway, I thought that whole thing was interesting. And I got to be honest, I've been driving the Prologue around for the last few days, and it is indeed fine. And I could totally see how parents who had to raise their kids in a Pilot or an Odyssey, and now they wanted, their kids are in college, they want to downsize, they want something electric, they end up with a Prologue. And it's not the best. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah.
And that's all Honda was trying to do this time.
And honestly, that's what most cars are just fine.
Most cars are fine.
Yeah, no, non-car enthusiasts, and you get that too, right? The way they buy vehicles is very different. They're not creating spreadsheets necessarily. Some of them are, the analytical ones.
No, I do it for my friends, though. They come to me and say, I want to buy a car, or they're getting a spreadsheet.
My neighbor traded in his Kia Niro, and he's like, what other cars are out there?
The Kia Niro's the best one.
And, he was like, he's like, my lease is due today. I need to figure something out in like an hour. And he ended up just trading it in for a new one because he didn't want to be inconvenienced to have to think about it.
Right.
And so if, again, you are loyal to Honda or just have had them.
I do worry that it'll shine a bad light on Honda if the Prologue isn't as reliable as they want it to be, but also EVs probably are more likely to be reliable and fine. And
there's other issues too. It's a GM interior, so everything is in kind of a weird place, especially if you're used to Honda. Like the windshield wipers are on the turn signal stalk in like a small little dial. But it could shine a bad light on Honda, but I think consumers forget this. People would never even remember the Honda Passport existed, the original one.
Right.
Or the Acura SLX and all that.
Right. Or the Mazda Tribute then transitioned to a CX-5
had a Mazda Tribute.
years later.
Anyway, that's the Honda Prologue situation. It is crazy how people buy cars.
Yeah.
I once read a
buy cars
statistic
like
that something like 50% of people would buy a different car than when they bought if their preferred color was available in a different car.
Yeah, the things that it can come down to at the 11th hour are like wild.
You often hear about people that bought a car and then realize that the seat wasn't comfortable for them. It's like, did you not sit in this car? Like at the very least, like sit in the showroom in the car.
How many people come to you and ask for cars? Like your friends and family?
A lot. And
even though you don't know anything about cars, like new cars?
And I give bad advice because I can tell you if, as an enthusiast, here's what I would get.
Right.
But I'm not thinking about like...
But people must ask you about crossovers. That's like the big one, RAV4 CR-V, but you don't know anything about, what do you say?
I actually like enjoy the process, so I will go research and look online and be like, okay, if you're looking for a mid-sized SUV, like here are the ones. So then I'd be like, stay away from this brand, whatever. Yeah. So I try to give good advice, but I have to remember it's not advice for me because my levels of importance of things are very different.
This is one of the things that annoys me about a lot of enthusiasts, and especially a lot of enthusiast forums and comments on my Instagram posts and Facebook and stuff, is that a lot of car enthusiasts straight up forget. Like I will positively review the Lexus RX, be like, "There, you're getting paid," and it's like you don't get it. Like you don't get that the people watching that video and buying that car. That's just consumer advice, and they don't care that the X5 is a second faster 0 to 60. That's not what they're interested in, and that's very frustrating for me with a lot of extremely online car enthusiasts.
There's an old viral video used, I think it's called Super Normal, but the guy's giving advice to like a single mom of 3. And she's like, what car should I get? And he's like, duh, the only answer is an E30. You can track it and work on it. And she's like, no, I need room for my kids. And he's like, oh, well, duh, then it's a Crown Vic because you can find lots of parts cars and change the motor in an afternoon. And she's like, I'm a single mom. I don't know how to work on a car. He keeps going through enthusiast cars.
That is so
It
accurate.
Goes to like a Miata and you
and
just make
people
trips.
don't, a lot of times people just don't understand what this real situation is.
Can I tell you guys a 4 car people should buy?
Yeah.
Corolla or Civic Hybrid. Now that we discussed last week, Civic Hybrid, best car on sale.
Yep.
RAV4 Hybrid, which 7 of my friends bought last year.
RAV4 Hybrid is like the car I recommend.
Subaru Outback, if you want something that seems sportier. And those are actually coming down to 3. Those are the only cars anybody that I know has bought in the last 3 years.
I tell everybody to buy RAV4 Hybrid. I will give you a little secret. You already know this secret, but I'm going to give everybody out there a little secret. The Toyota Venza, which just went off the market because nobody bought it because nobody had heard of it, is functionally very similar to the RAV4 Hybrid.
Better in every way.
But the RAV4 Hybrid has this name recognition because the RAV4, everybody knows it. Venzas are generally newer, nicer, and cheaper and get similar fuel economy. And so if you want to use RAV4 Hybrid, but you don't want to spend RAV4 Hybrid money, go pick up a Venza for like 20% off.
It's stunning how much of a price difference there is.
Yeah. Venza's got a little less room, but not much. And it's got that roof that you press a button and it goes whoop.
That sounds just like a sunroof.
It's an umbrella. Boop. No, it has one of those translucent.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah, like the 575 Super America.
There you go.
And if you're listening to this 5 years from now, go buy a used Crown Signia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw one yesterday. Driving along.
You did?
Yeah.
I checked the other week because I haven't seen one yet. They are on dealer lots. I checked.
Acura Honda in this Prologue call told me they've sold 1,000 ZDXs. You believe that? People out there buying cars, we barely even... Nick's never heard of any of these cars.
ZDX is the Acura version of the Prologue, and it looks a little bit different.
You didn't know what the Prologue was, though, until this.
Right.
I'm looking forward to checking out the video, though.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Nick, you should pay attention to these cars because they're incredible lease deals. Someday you will have to lease something for $199 a month, and they're out there.
Let me tell you, leasehacker.com. It's a place to go.
To the earlier point, my wife has had Ford Explorers and enjoyed Ford Explorers. And we want to get another Ford Explorer because we've liked Ford Explorers.
And so you're not going to do any research. You're just going to get a Ford Explorer.
If she's cool with it, I'm cool with it. Let's not waste an afternoon.
But the Audi family needs you.
That's the Cayenne. The
You're
Lambo.
getting Cayenne and a Ford Explorer.
Yeah.
Wow, big ballin' over here.
Wow, moving from a Ford Focus that's 10 years old to an Explorer.
Nick,
Dang.
I love
Used.
you too.
Aw.
Thanks for being my family
Thanks,
member.
robot.
His name is Mike.
Can I talk about a car that you should buy? People should buy?
Yeah.
The Nissan Armada and Infiniti QX80.
Oh, that's
we,
your okay.
we malign greatly, but there's a new generation of both. I'm going to pull up a photo of them.
Yeah, I'm still thinking of the old Armada. I don't know what it looks like now.
Yeah, it looks similar.
He wrote this down. Here's what he wrote.
I've written it down every week for the last 4 weeks.
He wrote the Armada is underappreciated, just like the Kia Borrego.
I stand by it.
Remember that car?
No,
Yes.
there's one parked a block
had
away
a
from my
Borrego.
house, and I think about it
The Borrego was in his wheelhouse of dates, so he knows what it is.
Wasn't
at
that
this.
one model year only? The
No.
Borrego?
09 only. Although
I thought
I
it
went
was
to
09, 10.
Dubai, and they're everywhere. Turns out it's still being sold there as the Kia Mojave to this
Wow.
day.
Did you ever think this is only to people our age? There's a vine where a guy slips and falls in his driveway on snow while shoveling. It's a great vine. There's a Kia Borrego in the corner of that, and the only thing I think about when I see that vine
Is the
a Kia
Borrego.
Borrego.
They did a V8 one.
They did.
Anyway, the point is, you're saying that the Armada is
the
underappreciated.
Armada, a bunch of reviews have come out, first drives, walk arounds. The QX80 I think is a little bit behind it, and by all they're apparently good, and the interior has a ton of screens and tech, and it's all updated.
It might be good. I will
And
say
it might actually be good, but nobody will ever find out about it, and it's a shame.
the body-on-frame full-size SUV has become increasingly kind of a niche car. When I was a kid, Suburbans, Tahoes, Yukons were like everywhere. Expedition came out in '97. It was a huge deal. They were sold. Millions of them were sold. They've become so expensive and so prohibitively large, and so gas guzzling that
But then again,
my
the Sequoia sells well.
It sells well in the sense that they sell as many as they make, but I never see them. Even new Tahoes are much rarer than they were when I was a kid.
But this might be the most competitive product in the class, and nobody will ever know.
But body-on-frame full-size SUVs is not where you want to win the war. If you're
It's
Nissan,
really
you
not.
want to win in the little crossover.
And I think it will be forgotten, but I think it will also be a deal in 5 years.
what motor is powering it? Still V8 in there?
I think there's a V8 or it's a twin turbo V6.
Nick and I are V8 guys. We wouldn't touch this thing.
Twin
It's
turbo
weird
V6.
to be body on frame and then a V6.
Yeah, although my Sequoia is that. And I'll tell you, the V6 is legit.
425 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque.
Oh, I got more.
Do you really? You don't have more torque than that.
I do. I got more. I got 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque.
Big power.
I'm like
Big
a McLaren up in here.
Big power. All right, but nevertheless, I feel bad for the Armada because I think maybe the one good product that Nissan makes. And it's a shame that nobody will pick
Nobody
them.
cares still.
But speaking of body-on-frame cars, I have a theory that late last-gen, current-gen 4Runners are going to retain value and go up in value.
This is a market report.
This is a market report
okay,
topic.
Let's introduce the market. This is the market report segment. We are going to talk about the car market, sponsored by
Cars and bids.
The Aspark Owl.
No. That would have to exist for it to sponsor us.
the Aspark Owl. It sponsors us by saying, "Ooh." That's the sound. You know how all EVs have by law have to have a sound they make when they're going low speed? It goes down the road going, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Cars and Bids is the best place to buy and sell modern enthusiast cars. You can sell for free. You can buy with an industry low buyer's fee. Carsandbids.com.
Well, nice job.
Thank you. Looks like I've been here for a while.
Okay, so your point is that these are going to become
So
big deals.
the new 4Runner for 2025 is a not body on frame. It's a unibody.
No, it's still body on frame.
but it's like a 4-cylinder hybrid.
Oh, come
thing.
on.
I love it, but just like we talked about the Land Cruiser not being a real Land Cruiser anymore.
Yeah.
I think that reputation might follow the 4Runner as well.
Well, okay.
And I think that somehow this generation, which has been for sale since 2011,
12, yeah.
will remain really valuable. So we just sold this 2024 with 910 miles.
Yeah.
MSRP was $56K, sold for $53K plus $2K, $2,500 buyer's fees.
Yeah.
So basically MSRP.
Yeah. That's an
Which is
interesting
like the rare car right now that is still worth MSRP after you drive it off the lot.
True. It's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about that. This was a Pro. It was a very special thing. It's like the FJ Cruiser.
Right.
But the FJ Cruiser
Which
went
does
away.
retain value.
It was never replaced, but they came out with nicer after the FJ went away, they came out with these Pro 4Runners that kind of replaced it, but it never really. This is an interesting point I hadn't really considered.
Because the 4-liter is known to be excellent.
People love the 4-liter.
The new Tacoma is having a lot of transmission issues.
Yeah.
And might be said the 4Runner as well. And like this is just a known entity.
I will say one difference between the 4Runner and I will tell you this. Ooh. When the 4th gen went away, as the last V8, people said the same thing, and it never happened.
No, but that's because it wasn't that good a V8.
I have a suspicion that the next gen 4Runner is going to be awesome. I haven't driven it yet, but I've played around with it, and I think it is the coolest thing in the world. And I'm a big Toyota truck guy.
The thing that they've grown used to after 13 years on the market?
Maybe. I think you're right that they'll hold value. Like
they might not appreciate it.
I don't think they're going to shoot up, but I think you're right that they're going to hold. So this is a really good point.
You know FJ values, right?
FJs bring big money. We sell FJs
50K.
regularly for 40s, 50s. Yeah, we just sold this one a couple days ago. It was bid to over 40. They bring money. Yep.
And this car had 57,000 miles.
Yep.
And surely it wasn't 40 grand new.
No, yeah. No, they bring money. They're real. And I think that you make a good point about 4Runner. That's an interesting point. But I will say, I do think the new 4Runner is an improvement. The difference with Land Cruiser is...
That's a good point.
The new Land Cruiser, I'm going to just say it. You ready? The new Land Cruiser is not an improvement over the old Land Cruiser. It's just not the same. It is a worse product. It's cool. It's neat. It looks cool, but the Land Cruiser used to be the top dog, big boy, off-roader, can do anything, 25-year service life, this bad boy. And it just isn't that now. And the difference is the 4Runner, it's just kind of going to a new generation. And I think in time, the new hybrid engines will be loved by people, like loved.
Yeah. And I love the new Land Cruiser, but I agree, it's not the same.
It's not the same.
Sounds like the Honda PR team's pitch of the new Land Cruiser. Not as good as the old one, but it's for sale.
Yeah.
I see a lot of the new Land Cruisers around.
Everywhere.
I think it looks great.
It looks cool, but the problem is I still don't understand why people buy it over the 4Runner. The new 4Runner seems way more
appealing. The new 4Runner isn't for sale.
Okay, but when it is, what are people doing?
It's
more expensive and worse.
Very thin.
It's thin.
Especially because the GX550 exists as well.
Right, with a third row. That the Land Cruiser doesn't offer.
But not in the top.
I know, that is the real shame. The Land Cruiser would be a serious contender if it had a third row.
The 4Runner has it.
Yep.
The GX has it. The Land Cruiser doesn't. Doesn't make any sense. But if they did, that would slice it even thinner. And by the way, the Land Cruiser of today's world is the
Sequoia TRD Pro.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
the Land Cruiser of today's world, of course, is the Lexus LX 600, which is the 300 series Land Cruiser.
It's actually the Land Cruiser.
Fine. We'll accept the Sequoia as the answer.
Okay, next market report topic. I have a couple, but I'm going to specifically talk about G-Wagons.
Thrilling.
G-Wagons, I've decided everyone should buy a G-Wagon.
Which G-Wagon should they buy?
You are listening at home, you want a sign to go buy your G-Wagon? This is your sign.
What G-Wagon should they buy?
Probably an early G500. So we have this one live right now. By the time you watch this podcast, it'll have long sold. This thing is green.
This is a great car.
The thing about G-Wagons is the following. There's two things. Number one, they don't lose value, ever. So they're a little bit expensive to buy, but you will never lose value. Like, I remember looking for 02 G-Wagons in 08, and they were 30, and they're still 30.
Yeah.
It's like still to this day. I mean, there's been some inflation, but the concept is the same, right? The other thing is they're surprisingly reliable. This motor was one of the very most reliable. There's about 3 things I would do to them to bulletproof them. And then you're like good for, and none of them are expensive, and then you're like good forever and ever and ever. And the early G55 also used the M113. It was a slightly different version, but it was supercharged to 469 horsepower. This is the one to get. An early G55, great power, great performance, with a couple of cool off-roady things. How come you don't have one of these?
Remember, when I bought my 958 Cayenne, you tried so hard to talk me into a G-Wagon.
Why don't you have
You sent
one?
me spreadsheets with data on
On what?
mileage.
Reliability.
Yeah.
Because that Steve Lang, who worked for About Cars, did that dashboard light website that tracked reliability, and G-Wagon was like his highest rated overall car. They are incredibly reliable.
He basically like yelled at me at this volume for 3+ hours on why I should get one. And really the only thing that held me back was like the Kardashian image and it just being a bit extra.
There's two drawbacks.
You can make it work though with like plasti dipping the bumper guard as this person did.
Yeah.
Helps.
That's the thing.
Removing it entirely, like this G500 doesn't have it, also helps.
Yeah. I think you can make it work. Go back to the other one. I think the way to make it work is you throw on some off-roady looking things, and it gets more XJ Cherokee than G-Wagon. This has mud flaps. It has tail light guards and headlight guards. It has the brush guard, the roof rack.
I find to be...
And some all-terrain tires. And that like... what do you mean? You're backing up in the forest. How many times have you been doing that? You break your tail light,
To me...
that throwback fifth wheel
Tire
cover is
cover,
actually really cool.
For some reason, the taillight covers just scream like I street parked this in a like Long Island.
No,
I don't know why.
Disagree.
You're backing
I
up.
don't know why.
You're backing up in the jungle. This car has seen monkeys. Monkeys have been near this car. That's what it screams to me.
Yeah, I do like, I've loved my 958 Cayenne. I also think that's a car like a lot of people should think about buying. But the G-Wagon, you were right, did hold the value better.
Yeah.
Probably, my Cayenne's actually been good on maintenance, but I think the G-Wagon would have been just as good.
One of the
So
drawbacks
it
is the
would have been a great
Gs that are
recommendation.
especially reliable are the early 2000s ones with the M113. The tech is trash. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd have to do a lot of work to get it into any good shape. The other big drawback, in addition to the image, which I agree is the biggest drawback,
Yes.
the fuel economy is atrocious. Like it's half what you get in your
Yeah,
Cayenne.
sure.
And so like I'm telling you it's a good buy because it holds its value and it's inexpensive to own. Well, all the money that you save and all those things will go into putting fuel in it, because in my convertible one, which is half the size of a regular, I get like 12 miles per gallon.
And you're driving that hard.
I do, with no tire pressure. I mean, that helps. But the early US G-Wagons, like 02
so
to
cool.
07,
I think
everyone should have one.
we have convinced in the last week at least one person to buy one.
Sean should get one. Nick
producer.
Stafford sent me this one the other day. Everybody should get one. You should get it. You should now get one.
Ooh, good idea.
That could be a good future build series for the channel, actually.
Yeah,
I'm
it'd be
open to
like,
that.
oh, another reliable day with my G-Wagon.
Don't need to do anything.
That's true. There wouldn't be a lot of content.
People don't realize, but these used SUVs eventually get priced based on their reliability.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
That's why 100 series trucks,
100
like
series are
cruisers, still worth
valuable.
something.
These are even more valuable because
Yeah.
the market has discovered
Yeah.
that these are really valuable and capable. And of course, the P38 is
Free.
the least valuable. Yeah, free, exactly.
The P38 is free.
Okay, everyone should just buy G-Wagons. All right, next up, we're going to move on to questions. Questions. Now, we are pre-filming this episode a week before, so these are leftover questions from
Yeah.
last week. But going forward, we'll have live new episodes, and if you want to ask us questions, go to carsandbids.com, click on the Communities tab, and there will be a post there that says, Ask Us Questions. You can ask us questions, and we will answer the highest upvoted ones, no matter how stupid they are.
Correct.
Fun fact for you, I submitted a question to Kenan, and even though I've been on this podcast a dozen times, I did this wrong, and I created a new thread with my question. And it did not get asked because I did not follow the instructions. So look for that
Follow
Let's
thread.
start with
The
your
instructions.
question. What was your question? Oh, it was just for Kenan.
It was just for Kenan.
Was it about Emily?
I was egging him on about the 355 Resto mod we saw.
Apparently, I saw in our news article today that they stiffened a bunch of like known failure points with carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber never breaks.
First,
Good idea.
in the end, it's going to come out that the carbon fiber didn't break on that. It was like the point where it attached to something else.
On what?
On the hull of the Ocean Gate thing, the Titan submersible. That's what he's talking about. Do you remember it went down to the Titanic,
I do.
and then instead of getting down there, it exploded.
Right.
It imploded.
Yeah.
It blew up.
Blew it.
First
In?
question from Big Ultima Hater 6. If these cars were to sell on Cars and Bids, which one would bring the most money and which would you buy?
Okay.
Volkswagen Golf GTI W12 650. Remember that thing?
Yep.
Nissan Juke R. Aston Martin V8 Signet. These are all one-offs. They
Wow.
did make a few Juke Rs, but one
All
was
right.
destroyed.
Go through each of them.
Okay, so the GTI W12, they put a W12 engine mid-mounted in a Mark
Which means
V
in the back
GTI.
seat,
Yeah.
basically.
The Juke R.
Was it a Mark 6?
Mark 5, Mark 6, around there. The Juke R, they put a Nissan GTR drivetrain in a Nissan Juke.
Yep. I
This is
love
one of
the
my
Juke.
grail cars.
100%.
The V8 Signet was a one of one. They put the V8 Vantage V8 in a Signet, wider fenders, wider tires, and they sold it to one dude who said, I'll only buy this car and finance the production of it if you never build another. And so Aston agreed never to build another. And so...
Probably wasn't a difficult argument.
Right.
It's fine. No one wants it anyway, so we'll give it to you.
Well, we can never build another of this incredibly desirable car. What a shame. Anyway, the question is, what would bring the most money? I don't know the answer to that, but how about this? What do you want the most?
For what it's worth, the GTI would bring the most money. Thank you.
Yeah, that was like that's a W12 GTI. That would probably bring the most. A V8 Signet would be cool as hell, though.
Yeah.
I know which I would buy.
Looked up the Juke R.
Well, I just wanted to see it. I know it, but I thought I would see it again.
What do you like the best of these?
I think I would do the GTI W12. But it's
Wow.
like it's a tough decision.
Wow.
I mean, look at this,
Impeccable taste in cars.
which was Mark 6, by the way.
The person who asked this definitely knows their stuff, right? That's like a real enthusiast versus just someone who likes a Maserati badge.
Right.
Wow.
God,
What do you
look
against
at this
Maserati?
car.
Gosh, that's cool.
Look at this thing.
I think this is the direction I go, but it's followed very closely by the Juke R and trailed far behind by the Aftermarket.
Really?
Yeah, I don't care.
I think I'd put the Signet last too.
Really? It's definitely my first. But unlike you guys, I've spent some time around a Signet.
The other two would actually be usable to drive. I would imagine
So
the
with the
Signet.
Signet, honestly, this is not usable to drive. This has the W12 in the back seat.
Nissan GTR powered Nissan Juke.
Yeah,
is usable
it's
to drive.
I think that's
famously
probably the most
effective.
daily
You couldn't
drivable.
use it because you'd be beating off all the excited people who want to check it out.
Okay, this admittedly has This has a W12 in the back seat. Maybe not super usable.
Maybe not super usable. Those Renaults that had this had front lift. I drove one. It was kind of scary. And they had a V6.
So it can fly is my takeaway.
That car, like a CLK GTR.
Yeah.
No, the V8 Signet's the answer. Pull up a picture of the V8
I
Signet.
think that would get
Signet's
like
not the
45
answer.
You
grand.
wouldn't want a V8 Signet?
No, we get more than that.
I would want one, but I just think if I had to stack rank them, they would be third.
This is
You don't
the
think
least
that's cool as hell? Look at
no.
those fenders.
It looks like something my 2-year-old kid would play with.
Yes, it does. It looks like Hot
That's
Wheels
the
made
point.
a car.
That's the point. You know what?
Look
You've
at this.
lost that fun. Pull that. Yeah, you've lost that fun within your heart.
No, I stand by my ordering.
This is a V8
GTI,
Signet.
Juke R, and then miles behind the Aftermarket Signet.
No.
Isn't it also just like a Toyota IQ or whatever
Yeah.
it's called?
What do you think the Nissan Juke is? You think that's like the
It's
high
just the
quality
Nissan Juke.
product?
That's true. That's
Love
fair.
the Juke. And every incantation.
The Signet. Okay, so you both pick the GTI first.
think so.
It's a tough race for first. Not a tough race for third.
I think that you can.
That's so cool.
The tiebreaker is number of cylinders, so we got to go 12 cylinder first before we consider a V8.
And then the Juke R is a 6, buddy boy.
Right?
So you're saying it's
That's-
second?
That's fine. That's how we'll do it.
You know,
It's
I'm
fair.
going to tell you a little Juke R story for
Please.
you. I was bored this summer and thought to myself, wonder if I could pick one of these up.
How much are they? Are they ready for, like, where have they sold?
All right. So they never sold in the U.S.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah, I
problem. I
assume it's
can't
mostly Middle East.
federalize it.
I mean, just, you put Juke on the title.
One came for sale at a dealer in Germany that has super cool stuff.
Okay.
And they wanted all the money, and then that became half of all the money later.
What was
I don't remember, a couple $100,000.
Okay.
And
Worth
I was
it.
like, that's pretty cool. But then you got to remember, you're driving a Nissan Juke.
Yeah.
R.
Yeah, but I don't think that goes to Bonhams in 100 years and pulls all the money, in front of with a British auctioneer. And then this was a Nissan Juke.
No, but it goes to, like, Fast and the Furious movie set.
What I want to know
For
is
Fast 20.
you could never recreate the other two cars in your garage over a couple cold ones. But I think you
the
could put a
Signet you
GTR
could.
engine into a Juke.
Every time I see the high performance Juke, which was the
Yeah.
SR, which is no extra power but body kit, I think that exact thing.
Yeah.
Okay, the car that you can most create in your garage is this.
I can't even buy one. I can't even buy one OE.
Well, you buy an IQ, which you could buy OE, and then
You don't
there
even
go.
understand how many changes. As a man who
I
spent
watched
a
your
lot of
video.
time with a Signet, okay, in a parking lot in the San Fernando Valley, I know very well this car is not just a Toyota IQ. It's got a bad reputation.
It's got hood vents.
It's got vents. All right.
Yeah. Okay, next question, please.
V8 Signet's the answer. And by the way, the commenters will agree with me.
No, they won't.
Next question from Prancing Meese. What heavily depreciated vehicles are surprisingly reliable?
QP5.
I actually agree with that.
Late QP5, yeah.
Late QP5, V8 Vantage,
Yeah.
E55 with the blown V8,
Yep.
the 03 to 06 E55 AMG,
Yep,
and
agreed.
other
Which
cars.
are cheap.
Yeah, they're cheap, but
They're
they're 470
$12,000.
horsepower.
Yeah.
They're fast. I'll tell you, ISF is not heavily depreciated. Like there are cars that because the manufacturer's rep is bad, they're cheap, but they shouldn't be.
You know what is? Cayennes.
Cayennes.
All
Yeah.
Cayennes.
Cayennes, we get Cayennes routinely submitted us with 200,000 miles. Can't be that unreliable.
I tried to convince Sean, who we convinced to buy a G-Wagon, to instead buy a Cayenne by sending him really cheap Cayenne results. And they're like 13 grand for
They
an
sell
S.
for 13.
My
Nick, no,
GTS has
for your
110,000
job.
miles.
what's
and
that
I've
worth?
been-
12.
Yeah, 18 maybe, if I'm lucky. And that's because I have a cool spec.
Cool spec, man. Black on red. This is black on red. I think
Yeah,
that
it's a
there are
question.
some cars that they depreciate because the manufacturer has a bad rep for reliability, but the individual cars themselves are actually pretty reliable. Panamera.
Cobalt SS.
Okay. Next question.
Am I wrong?
I was going to throw the
Am I wrong?
Arnage T in there as well, just because they are 20K cars and you could drive them pretty
They're
good.
not reliable. They're known to not be reliable.
They're compared to the red label and the green label, they are.
other versions of the same car that were worse. There are probably other examples.
I saw something the other day that really stuck out to me, but I don't know what it was now. Well, we'll never know.
XC90s.
Which gen?
First.
Yeah.
03s.
Second gen are also cheap.
2.5 turbos.
A little questionable.
Anyway, that's a good question. And there actually are some cars, and it's a pretty good play if you do that, because there are, like, the Astons, I think, is a great example. Aston's rep has pushed the values of those cars down, but I don't think that they, beginning with the 06, the AJ cars, really deserve that rep. And I think they actually tend to be pretty reliable.
I think that they scare people. You're right. Brand reputation matters a lot. So, like, Ford Excursions on the other side of the thing. Everybody knows which engines are desirable, and prices reflect it. Because everybody knows. 7.3 is what you get. But yeah, on an Aston, everybody just assumes they're unreliable.
They're reliable.
And then don't do the research.
They don't do the research. Nobody did the research on the QP.
The QP5 is a great example. The early ones were bad. It had the F1 transmission. It had cam variator issues. They're worth nothing, and then people don't realize they changed the transmission, they changed the cam variator, they fixed all these problems.
And it actually is a pretty desirable car.
But damage was done because they say, oh, that generation of QP5 is trash, don't touch it.
And Maserati's rep in general, I think, has that problem. And so that's I would argue that yours is kind of like the one era that's good, though. Because the next gen Maseratis were Chrysler stuff. And anything earlier has these problems.
But I even talked to mechanics, like people who work on these cars, and they're like, please, for the love of God, I beg you, do not buy this car. It is the worst decision you've ever made. And I was like, no, I have a P38. I know about unreliable cars. And they're like, you don't understand. Do not buy this car. You will regret it. And it's been great. It's got 90,000 miles on it.
You've owned it for a day, legally.
I agree with you. I think that even those mechanics, it's hard when you're a mechanic who sees a million cars, a million different varieties, to really understand the distinct differences between, unless you yourself put the time into it, and most of them don't. And to really understand, hey, although I see a lot of QPs, I'm not seeing a lot of 11 to 13 models. I'm not seeing, that's hard.
Right. Enthusiasts do that. Everyone else says, my Nero lease is due today and I need to replace it quick so that I can get to work tomorrow. Which should I get in return?
Yeah, totally.
Next question from Paul Hanrahan. Doug, do you play any driving games such as Forza Horizon or Beam NG Drive? I watch a lot of Beam NG Drive videos on YouTube.
Do you watch them go over like progressively larger holes and into buses?
You do this?
I have never heard of this.
Really? You don't? When you're on calls, Zoom calls at work, you don't do this? I do this on most Zoom calls. Like 80% of Zoom calls.
We know.
Like you just there's a game called Beam NG Drive. It's like a realistic car physics simulator, and you can have like giant Thor's hammer like in the road, and so it's like you can drive like a QP5 or a Mercy and see what would happen if it crashed into Thor's hammer, and the damage is like very realistic.
I want to make clear, it's a great physics engine. It does not realistic for like the safety of a vehicle if you watch those videos.
I think it's great for everything. You should do. I'm going to send you some links.
All right. I will check that out.
I'm telling you, Beam NG Drive compilations on YouTube. You'll spend 2 hours. You lost 2 hours. You might not have kids the next day. You just be. I'm sorry. I have to watch these.
So many questions.
I'll block out my calendar.
What happened to your kids in that day?
Do that. Because the kids want to. Daddy, will you play with me? He's like, no. I can't.
Right.
I'm busy, but really he's watching.
It sounds like something kids would enjoy.
He's watching school buses.
It really does.
School buses go into a giant spinner. That's what he's watching.
Right.
Like they'll put in like road bumps that are like 4 feet tall, and they'll run cars at them at 150 miles an hour, and you just got to see what happens.
All right. Did you ever play any of the truck simulator? There's also bus simulator.
Yeah. So the question is, do I play any of the game? No, I don't, but I want to.
You used to, didn't you?
I used to be really good at Forza. I could beat anybody.
You seem like somebody that like did, but
I love
Euro.
Gran Turismo for real driving experience. And then, what was the game? I love like all the old games. My favorite memories was, do you remember I think it was Iron Man, the video game? It was like an off-road, you had a pickup truck.
Oh yes, I do actually.
Yeah, I would play those at like bowling alleys and like other Midwest gathering spots.
The only time I guess I play video games now
Cruisin'
is
USA.
Outrun and Cruisin'. When I stumble, I was in Austria, Vienna this summer, and there was an arcade that had Outrun, which is the Ferrari one.
Yeah.
And
there's also a really great Ferrari 355 challenge simulator that's super realistic. That if you find those at like a Dave and Buster's, like I'm like, again, block out the next 2 hours.
He doesn't have kids.
You have no dad anymore. Like we're playing this game.
Okay. Next question. Last question.
Nice.
Oh, this is a good one from Kostanik. Hey Doug, love your reviews. Just curious, how is it possible you own a G-Class Cabriolet, but you haven't yet reviewed the Mercedes Maybach G50 Laundaulet? Pull up a picture, please.
Of course.
Seems like the ultimate G-Class experience, and I would love your opinion. I agree it's the ultimate G-Class. A lot of people think the ultimate G-Class is the 6-wheel drive pickup truck. They're wrong. It was this. Not only did this have a V12, a twin-turbo V12, but it had portal axles and a half convertible top. And do you know why it's a half convertible top, Filippo?
Because they couldn't make it work with a full convertible top?
No. Take a look at that top and see if you recognize it from any other car. That's right. It's the top from the regular G500 Cabriolet.
That's brilliant.
You see,
Now
they didn't...
That's design right there.
You notice the circle window or the triangle window?
That's the back of your...
You
You're
notice
so right.
that bar?
Oh my God.
They got that from the regular G500 Cabriolet, and they figured, hey, we could do a full convertible top, or we could make it like this is a chauffeur thing and just use existing parts.
Right.
Smart.
And they did that, and they charged $1 million for it.
Why haven't you reviewed them? There are a few floating around
There's
the
a
US.
few floating around in SoCal. There was one for sale at a dealer up in OC, and they had it for sale, but they were like, the owner wants us to be quiet about it, so we can't review it. And anytime anybody's trying to sell something and they want you to be quiet about it, you just know the person is both sketchy and stupid. Both of those things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I wasn't able to review it. But instead, we can look at it here.
Unfortunately, I think that if I'm driving this V12 Beauty, I want to have the convertible top apply to me.
No, you're the driver. You're the driver.
Right.
You are my chauffeur. I don't care what you
why
want.
do I have a V12?
Because I, the passenger, want to experience you. We're in like India or the Middle East. Like you're a driver. You're paid nothing. I sit there and drink champagne in the back while you go a million miles.
I will be paid nothing to drive you around in this.
Oh, wow.
We'll do it.
Anyway, that's the story on the Laundaulet. I'd love to review one someday. If anybody has one, send it to me.
Or
so
sell
I
it
can
on Cars
review
and Bits, and then we'll bring it down to
By
the
the way,
office.
pull up the rear compartment. G50 Laundaulet rear.
I was just about to ask, is this 3-row or do you just have a lot of
2-row, but you'll be blown away. No, rear interior. You'll be blown away by what it looks like inside.
I apologize. I don't know how to enter this situation.
The rear interior is basically the front interior of a G-Wagon. No. Pull up the showing. That. It's the front interior of a G-Wagon, but what they've done is they've put 2 glove boxes. They're just regular G-Wagon glove boxes. Right. They've put 2 center infotainment systems, just regular G-Wagon infotainment systems, and this center console is the same one from the regular G-Wagon in front. This car was conceived like cheaply and poorly, and they got $1 million for it.
Brilliant.
It's one of the great stories in the history of the car.
BMW wishes they could do it.
BMW wishes they could do it. Instead, they're selling XMs for
throwback there to last week's episode. If you haven't listened to that,
and there you go. That's our podcast. Filippo, any parting thoughts?
Best podcast ever.
Best we've ever done. Nick, thank you for joining us. Kenan will be back next week, hopefully.
We think.
Yeah.
Depends on how Emily's doing.
Yeah, Emily. Oh boy, she took a turn for the worse.
Not health wise, just in general. Took a wrong turn.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for watching.